Till the end.
All right, how about you run to the library and see what's good? Reference table and perhaps circular. All right, we are starting in on what I call chapter 2, part 2. Chapter 2, part 2, I used to teach this as like a whole separate chapter. But I just decided to start going all as one so that we didn't have to do 2 separate tests. It still has to do with Earth's dimensions. Remember, we were learning how to find locations and the shape, but we're also going to be talking about what different ways of making maps. Have you guys seen maps that have things on them other than latitude and longitude? Yeah, what are some other things that we might put on a map just to kind of show things on a map? Maisie, can you think of one? Mountains. We will absolutely, and that is actually what we're going to be focusing in on this chapter, is mapping mountains and how high they are compared to how low the valleys might be, whether it's a steep hill or a gentle hill. That's what we're really going to be focusing in for the next 2 weeks, is mapping the shape of the land. But there's other maps out there. What other information do people put on maps on a regular basis just to kind of send information along to people? What? Well, yeah, there's key, but what stuff do they put on the map that they need a key for? Yeah, the lines and stuff. And that's actually going to go right along with, I think, what Maisie, I'm not sure if that's what you were talking about too. We can use lines to connect places of equal elevation. Is that what you meant? Yeah, that is absolutely one. What's something else that we might map out? Yes, they often, you really see these around here during the winter when they throw up a map of Western New York and they show that there was a lot of snow in Holiday Valley, but not that much in Grand Island or anything like that. They'll show the different amounts of snowfall or rainfall for that matter, but we see them a lot with snow. Anything else that the weather people might talk about on a map? They definitely talk about UV, temperature. They'll also talk about pressure and cloud cover, and they show it all on maps. These are called, with these maps, we're going to do what's called mapping of fields. When I say field, what first comes to your mind? Yeah, like a farm field, like the ones across the road over there. It's a field of corn, or a baseball field, or is it a football field? Yeah, a football field or a soccer field. Those can be fields, but when I'm talking about a field, I literally mean whatever you're mapping, whatever you choose to measure. So if I wanted to map this room, then this room is my field. If I wanted to map the school, then the school is the field. Whatever I'm mapping, that's the field. So this is the first word on, is it page 19? Yep, page 19 is where we're putting this. Yeah, no, just in good old stretch. Good. So field is generic, and by generic, I just mean basic term for anything being measured. Farmers absolutely will map their actual fields to see where they get the most corn or the most soybeans from. Then they'll go and they'll investigate, well, why was that one particular spot more grew better than the other spots? It could be more sunlight, could be the dirt, it could be how much water is in the soil. So they map whatever you want to map to kind of improve how you can read the data. We'll put on maps these things called ISO lines. That's the next word, right? ISO lines. What do you hear in the word ISO? ISO lines, sorry. You hear ISO and you hear lines. What does ISO mean to you? When have you heard that before? If you isolate something, or if you're during COVID, you were put in isolation, or isopropyl alcohol. It's rubbing alcohol. It's the fancy name for rubbing alcohol. When you're isolated, or when you COVID was the perfect example. What was going on when you're being isolated if you had COVID? You were separated. Now, what if somebody else in your house had COVID? What I mean, the two of you, sorry. Could you guys hang out?
Yeah.
Yes. So isolating or iso means to separate into groups that are the same. So when you had COVID and you were isolated, anybody with COVID could stay in one side of the house. Everybody without COVID was supposed to be in the other. I don't know how many of us followed those rules, but you know that was what was supposed to happen. In math class, you hear the word ISO in front of a isosceles triangle. What's going on with those triangles?
Two same lines, one different line.
Two same. The kicker with ISO is it really has to do with being the same. So ISO lines is a line that connects points of equal value. So if they are the same value, we're going to connect them up. You can connect areas of equal, whatever the heck you want to measure. So we already talked about, we connect areas of equal precipitation or equal temperature or equal cloud cover, equal elevation. Literally can be whatever you can measure. You can start putting it on a map and connecting the lines to show areas of equalness. There are some specific ISO lines, again, is like a general term. And then we have more specific types of lines. For example, an isotherm. What do you think we're connecting? Areas of equal temperature. Therm means temperature, like thermometer or thermal. Isobars is the next one. This is not areas of equal places you go to drink alcoholic beverages. This is lines that connect areas of equal barometric pressure, which just means air pressure. We'll learn later this year when we do weather that air pressure controls a lot of the weather that we're experiencing. High pressure, like today is a fairly high pressure, which is why we have a nice day. Low pressures are those cruddy days.
You can use that for fishing.
Can you?
Yeah.
Really? What days are better, high or low pressure for fishing?
Low.
You want low pressure, so cloudy, dreary days are better for fishing? I had no idea. I am not a fisher person. Mallory likes to go fishing. The rest of us do not.
I would go fishing, but I don't know if I could like take them off.
Yeah, that was, so at first we had to take them off for her, and then I'm like, if you want to do this, you gotta do the whole thing. I think it's gross. I don't want to do it. Moving on though. You could, I don't think there's anywhere to write this, but you could do this for concentration of chemicals. If there is like an oil spill, there was one, thinking it had to have been over 10 years ago, but now there was an oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and they would map out, okay, there was a super high concentration right next to the leak, and then it would get less and less and less and less as you went out. But they were finding oil from this hundreds of miles away, and they were able to then map it, and you could see very easily the effect that oil spill had on the water. Literally anything you can measure, you can map it. Here's the Weather Channel loves these guys. So here's a couple examples from the Weather Channel. They did one for the Friday's indoor heating and cooling forecast. Not sure why we need a map that tells us when we need to use heat or an air conditioner, but apparently we did. It's nice and color coded. So you can see up here, they have high heating needs, and it gets a little bit less and less and less as you go down until we have to start using your air conditioner. Now, these don't look like lines when they're color coded, but if I was to, whoa, can't see the line, sorry. If I was to follow the outside of each color, that's where the lines I'm talking about comes from. So you can see that these are really just lines that they've colored in between. Yep, so I don't need to keep going, I don't think. But it's just lines that they've color coded to make it easier to read. Unlike this other one that I skipped over that I'm going to go back to, this one's not quite as easy to read. It looks really messy, not as pretty, but again, all of these lines connect areas. In this case, it's areas of equal pressure. So this is the 1012 line. So you can see we're going in between 1011, 1013, up to 1012. They're just fitting it in wherever 1012 fits. We're going to be making those, by the way. Here's another one that the Weather Channel did back in 2002. They made a map of the aches and pains that people were complaining about. Why? I have no idea. But they did. They made a map. They must have surveyed people, got some data that people in California not complaining, people in Maine, well, they're not so happy. I don't know why. I have no idea what's going on here, but you can measure it, you can map it. It's always baffled me. I don't understand this map, or the need for it. I can read it, but I don't understand why.
A lot of people.
Okay, I mean, we can make some stereotypes. Yeah, the people of New England, they complain. I though would have thought Florida would have been complaining. There's a lot of old people there. Don't they have aches and pains? Or is that the thing, is that they moved from wherever they were way worse and now they're just complaining less? I don't know. And then like California, they have no worries at all, no aches and pains at all. I don't know. Now that I'm getting older though, I can definitely see that New York's a little bit more achy and painy. Moving on though, sorry. So a map. I know you guys know the word map and you'd be able to tell me what a map looks like. It's just a snapshot though of a particular area. And then keep in mind, just because the map ends, the world doesn't. Unless of course it's a map of the whole world, then it does. But what I'm implying is like if I made a map of my room, it doesn't mean nothing exists outside of my room. The hallway's still there. I'm just not showing it on my map. So that's really important to remember. So just like Maisie brought up at the beginning, there's maps that show elevation. So they map mountains a lot, or map whether it's a flatland or mountains or a valley. That's what we're going to be focusing in for the next couple of weeks. And those are going to be called contour maps. Oh, okay. So contour lines and then contour interval are the next two vocab words. Where have you guys heard the word contouring or contours before? Makeup. Why do you where do you put those? Where are you contouring and why?
Like make lines sharper.
Okay, so a whole bunch of people say whatever these bones are called in your cheekbones, and like maybe over your nose a little bit to make the lines pop. To show like you want to pop, you want those cheekbones to look bigger, a little bit more pronounced, or you want to hide other areas. That's what contour lines are going to do. They're going to be showing those elevations, and we're going to make those elevations kind of pop. So those are lines that connect areas of equal elevation or altitude or height, however you want to put it. So just how high the mountain is. And then a contour interval, we don't draw lines for every single foot or every single meter. They'll count by something, and that's a contour interval. So whether we do lines every 5 meters or every 10 or every mile or every 2 miles, that's the contour interval. We're going to get into making these maps big time tomorrow. If you guys could bring yourself a highlighter, and we're going to want pencils tomorrow. Pens, I'll provide some pencils if you don't have any. But if you have your own, it'll definitely be easier for you to do tomorrow in a pencil and a highlighter instead of a pen. And no homework tonight. And if you guys